Someone who has been scoring tutties is George Pickens, and 33rd team did a redraft of the 2022 NFL draft, and they did picks 9 through 16. The Lions picked Jameson Williams at 12. They did a redraft, and they had them taken George Pickens. Well, Garrett Wilson still went to the Jets. Olave still went to the Saints. Deron Bland, obviously, he rises here and goes 13. Drake London goes 14 to the Baltimore Ravens. I think they still would have taken Kyle Hamilton, though.
That's what I was going to ask. Did he get picked before that?
Yeah, he did. I think he got picked like 9th or 10th.
Oh, never mind. Never mind then. Breece Hall, yeah, well, okay. Martin, okay, who cares? At 12, the Lions take George Pickens. And it brings up a interesting convo to revisit that draft that George Pickens was a option early second for the Lions. And I think George Pickens, I will say this about George Pickens. I think George Pickens is on his way to being he's already a very good player, but he's got a lot more potential. I mean, he caught like 60 balls for like 1,300 yards. So like, what if he catches 80? What is this guy doing? That's why he had like 18 yards per catch or something like that. And that was with Kenny Pickett. So I think George Pickens is a very good player. And hindsight is always 20/20 because Jamo's been suspended and hurt and he hasn't been on the field as much. Then when he was, the offense was already a well-oiled machine. He's got to work himself into the playbook. But I think Jamo, in terms of what he can bring to the table at his best, to me, I'm still intrigued by that. And that's why, like, hindsight, guys, like, yeah, who wouldn't want George Pickens? But at the time, come on. At the time, we knew Jamo was that dude. I mean, we all saw it. We all saw it. No. Oh, because he shoved the guy on a run play. Come on, relax.
No.
Yeah,
come on, Gentry, you go.
I still think, obviously, in the time being, I would have still picked Jamo because he still was that guy out of college. But George Pickens is a really good wide receiver, and I don't think he would have ever been picked at that place, obviously. But I'm still confident Jamo can still break out and be the wide receiver that we hope to be. And you never know that if Pickens was the right fit and what they were looking for at wide receiver, or if he was a fit for the locker room. And if he was truly, like someone said in the comments, a Dan Campbell guy. So I still think Pickens is a great wide receiver. In hindsight, 2020, like Jeff said, yeah, maybe. But I'm still confident that Jamo can break out and be the wide receiver that we need him to be.
I'll be the lone wolf here. And this does not mean I do not like Jamo. You guys know how I like X wide receivers. You guys know how I like big wide receivers. You can stretch the field vertically, and that's what the Lions need. What is Jamo ultimately? A deep threat. Now, Jamo runs as fast as a track star, so that's why he was a first-round pick. But George Pickens coming out of college, he was extremely raw. He had those attitude issues. And when you go to Pittsburgh, I'm sorry, they're not going to be fixed there. I think when you look at Antonio Brown, you look at Le'Veon Bell, there's been numerous cases in Pittsburgh. Guys just have attitudes. It's not the same culture there. So if he was picked in Detroit, which the attitude probably was a reason that they decided not to sit at 32 and take him and move up and get Jamo, he doesn't have that stuff. George Pickens, I've said it once, I said it twice. He has the ability, in my opinion, to be a mini DeAndre Hopkins. I think if you look at his ability to high point the football, his ability to know where he's at on the field and keep his feet in bounds, his body control, and he can even run after the catch. You look at the game against the Browns, he single-handedly kept them in the game. George Pickens do everything, and especially blocking. I know people can laugh at it, and Jamo does do it well, but I think George Pickens, given his frame and his strength, he can take it to a whole nother level. I think George Pickens is a perfect fit for this offense, especially what they need. But with all that said, I'm still happy Jameson Williams is part of the Lions. I just think if you're asking me, would you rather have Jameson Williams at 12 or George Pickens at 32? I would have been telling you George Pickens at 32.
Here's the thing. Like, I don't think anyone would argue who's the better player. Obviously, George Pickens. And if you revisit, like George Pickens on this team right now would be amazing. But at the time, so you were a George Pickens.
That was the Leggett of the draft for me. That was my Leggett of 2022.
The attitude stuff got me a little worried. I didn't know he'd pan out like this, obviously, but seeing him at Georgia, like you said, he was talented. I just thought in terms of a culture fit, I was like, I don't know. I didn't know he'd be there, if I'm being honest. Right. I did not know.
Even though he's panned out as a player, he still has taken plays off. And Maybe that's rightfully so due to some of the play calling that the Steelers had. But one thing I can guarantee, even with or without getting the ball, you're never going to see J-Mo taking a play off. And you've seen it last season, him running down the field, making blocks, and he necessarily wasn't getting the opportunities that he wanted receiving-wise. But he was still going out there and doing his job, and he wasn't throwing a hissy fit at the goal line, not blocking for his running back. So,
but when I say this, I don't want to make it seem like you guys are wrong, but you even look at like Deontay Johnson too. You look at Chase Claypool. Like, you just look at the history of the Steelers team, the culture there. Mike Tomlin, great coach. And another reason why he's such a great coach, that locker room's a mess half the time. So I feel like when you talk about a culture, it's a lot easier for George Pickens, who already has a little bit of attitude issues, just to fall right back into that situation. If he's in a situation where you got Penei Sewell, you got Aiden Hutchinson, you got Alex Anzalone, David Montgomery, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is how a professional is supposed to act. I don't think there's a lot of that in Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin, even though he is he's a great coach, he does let wide receivers be themselves.
Players in general.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what got him success. Like, when early on, especially with like Troy Polamalu. Troy Polamalu wasn't a guy that say, "Hey, go play cover 3, just cover your zone." Troy Polamalu was a guy that you just had to let roam the field. When you look at Ike Taylor, all those guys, you just let them make plays. So I think, especially as a defensive coach, that's probably just the culture he has. He likes the guys make plays, but there's a point where it's just like, you're the head coach of this football team. There needs to be a standard set, and you can see consistently that it's the standard's not always being driven to how it's supposed to be.
If J-Mo can have the type of production that George Pickens has, then yeah, that's how you justify being selected. But here's the thing. I don't know if he will, because of what's happened around him. Like, I don't think anybody, because this was he was drafted when Amon-Ra, was that after his rookie year? Or was that after? So yeah, Amon-Ra had 900 yards. I think people were making comparisons. Who's I can't think of at the top of my head, the biggest comparison people were making to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pittsburgh wide receiver.
Hines Ward.
Yep, Hines Ward. Thank you. So no one imagined that Amon-Ra would be this, an all-pro, 1,500 yards. We knew he worked his ass off. That was obvious, but no one saw this. No one knew that you'd get Sam Laporta, who's a top 2 tight end in the league. So for J-Mo, unfortunately, that's how the NFL works. It's not for long. That's what it stands for, and that's what happens. He has things that happen off the field, and I love J-Mo, but I mean, getting suspended. His first year basically was a scratch because he was injured, and now he's trying to fit into an offense that's doing well without him, and that's what's tough. I think a successful living up to 12 is tough, but at least getting what you drafted would be a really good wide receiver 2, maybe like a Devonta Smith, where maybe he gets 1,000 yards 1 year. But again, you have Sam Laporta, who's a 1,000-yard tight end. So I don't know if he'll ever have that type of production, that 1,300-yard season, unless he goes somewhere else, to be honest with you. Doesn't mean he can't be very good. I don't want to trade J-Mo, but I'm just being honest, given what they have.
Yeah, he doesn't need to live up to your point. He doesn't need to live up to being the number 12 pick. He needs to live up to being the wide receiver 2 of the Detroit Lions and getting in the correct spot and improving on the right things to help Jared Goff and this offense move when they can't go to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta or run the ball with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. He's just got to be that extra element because he can do it through the air and on the ground. So he's a player that can be valuable. But to your point, knock on wood, unless something happens to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, I don't think will ever live up to that number 12 overall pick. But at the same time, this was a guy who, I don't know if you can necessarily blame that on him. He was drafted on a torn ACL, didn't miss his whole rookie year. You knew that was going to happen. So there's a lot of questions about J-Mo. It was a big risk pick, but I don't think it's a pick that's going to be falling on its face. And we just need to drop the 12th overall pick thing. It's just any players. Like, he's 3 years into his career at this point. Like, what it is, accept it, move on, and realize that he's still a good player for this football team.
Yeah, that's why we've all been high. I mean, Mike's been hammering the J-Mo stuff for a while now, and I think the thing we have to take into account, and to your point, Lucas, is people get so obsessed with where a player's drafted, but we have to add in context. Like, if you didn't have an Amon-Ra on this team and J-Mo is what he is now, then yeah, you have every right to be frustrated. But given what's happened, it's like, if you get a really good wide receiver too, like, you're happy, at this point. Like, you have Amon-Ra. That's your de facto number 1. He's gonna put the team on his back at times. That's just how it works.
I think there would be much more concern for this offense too if Jameson Williams wasn't on this roster either. Like the people that were just like, all right, write off JMO. Like if JMO wasn't here, I think you'd be really questioning this offense outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta in the passing game. How much success could Jared Goff have? Because even when JMO doesn't get the ball, people laugh at it all the time, but he's helping those guys out so much because just when he's on the field, the safeties have to acknowledge him in the line, and they're just how they line up, and they got to back up an extra 2 to 3 yards. Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they dominate the middle of the field. That helps them naturally.